there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm looking at the brand new Spitfire Mk.IX in 1/48 scale from AIRFIX. Yes, I know it's another AIRFIX Spitfire, but this one is from a 2025 new mould, so it looks like the way forward for a whole new range of product in the future. The first kit from the new design was the TR9 trainer. I built it recently and that was a very good kit indeed. So the big question is this new Mk.IX any good? Now, if you enjoy the show, please do remember to let YouTube know by giving it the imperial thumbs up, by subscribing and by hitting the notification bell. All these are free and really help the channel. Let me know what you think of the kit as well in the comments box below. So we'll kick off our look at the kit by looking at the box the kit comes in. So here is the box of the 1/48 scale Supermarine Spitfire Mk.IX from AIRFIX, product code just down here, A05144. And there's a lovely piece of box art here showing some Spitfires escorting B-25s over the mountains in Europe. Very, very nice image actually. I like this scheme as well, with the yellow edging to the roundels, even though it's a late war type scheme. And also the white edging to the serials. Looks really smart. On this side of the box we have some warnings of not suitable for children under 36 months and so on and so forth. And that warning is in 12 languages. And there's bits and pieces here, just who it's made by, official product, model design and tooling 2025 to confirm it is actually the completely new tooling. Decals designs and pack designs, of course, also copyrighted, made in India, and there's cartograph decals and some little bits of information there. Again, don't let it anywhere near anyone under 3 years of age. On this long side, I normally get that wrong, but there we go, on this long side, there's a brief history of the Mk.IX specifically. There's a note here that the aircraft, when it's finished, will be 213mm long, 234mm wide, and there are 124 pieces, not all of which necessarily you will need. There are 3 schemes included, and they're briefly given here. An aircraft of number 43 Squadron Royal Air Force, a number of 5 Squadron Royal Danish Air Force, which I think is a scheme I'm going to do, and an aircraft of the Brustum Advanced Pilot School in Belgium in 1952, which is also quite attractive, mainly because of the spinner and that roundel there with the blue edge around it, I think. But I think I'm going to stick with the Danish one. There's a call out in Humbrol references to the colour schemes, and especially if you're going to use the pilot. And over here it says skill level 2. It will help if you've made another kit before, a starter set or something like that, before going on to this, but it's not overly complex. In fact, my experience of building the only other tool from this basic mould, which was the TR9 two-seater a little while ago, suggests actually it's fairly straightforward. There's a few small parts to deal with, but not very much. But if you have made a kit at all really in the past, you really should be able to handle this one. There's a reminder of the existence of the AIRFIX Club there, and there's a token for 2 flying hours. Now, if you're a member of the AIRFIX Club, one of the benefits is you can collect these flying hours and then exchange them in the future for a free kit. Or, if you're not a member of the club, or if you are a member in the club and you don't want to collect flying hours, please do consider sending them to Models for Heroes, a link to this very excellent charity helping serving and former members of the armed forces and blue light responder services is in the information box below. Please do check them out. The work they do is phenomenal. Okay, so that's the outside of the box. Let's see what we get inside for our money. So it's a top opening box, as you can see, and inside the usual sort of contents really. There's a single big polythene bag with all the plastic frames in, apart from another bag inside there with the transparent frames, just to keep them nice and safe. There is an instruction sheet with the scheme layouts in the back, and there is quite a large decal sheet but we'll have a look at all these different bits and pieces in a bit more detail. So frame A is the two fuselage halves, the interior parts for the side of the fuselage cockpit area. There's a pilot figure here with the arms separate so they can be posed correctly and still moulded on one of these things. Gun barrels, interior bits and pieces, instrument panel there. So that's all on frame A. Frame B, quite clearly, the bottom of the wings, the two top halves of the wings, and some of the internal structure for the fuselage. Frame C, we have the rudder, we have ailerons, we have the tail planes, and we have the elevators. We have the radiator boxes, we have a spar, undercarriage inserts. I guess these are the radiator bits from the faces from the inside. Pilot seat parts, oxygen cylinder, I'm guessing, and some other tiny little bits and pieces for the exterior of the aircraft. Then frame D, it's the engine cover in this strangely empty part of the frame. A single piece moulding for the propeller, the multi-part for the exhaust stacks. This is because you can't mould the exhaust stacks if they're too close together. The tool won't be able to come apart, so they do them separately to get some sort of accuracy to it. There's wheels and hubs, various options, wheels up and down obviously as well. Gear legs, tail wheel, some tabs, and the prop boss here. Then here on frame Z, really putting their money on making a lot of frames out of this kit. Frame Z is the transparency parts. So you have the windscreen, we have a single piece hood and rear hood if you want the hood closed, or you have a rear hood and a sliding top hood if you want them open. This of course is a slightly bigger part than this, so it will sit over the top of this hood. There's a cover for a recognition light down here. There's a gun sight, a couple other bits and pieces. And here there's a clue to the fact they will be doing a clipped wing version, maybe Mk.IX or something, because these are the wing tips in clear plastic for the clipped wing aircraft. So looking closely at the wing here, you can see the rivet details is relatively fine. And there's a lot of it. Now the reason why is, as I've mentioned before, this is essentially a scaled down, from the CAD is scaled down from the 1/24th to 1/48th. So a lot of these markings are there already. They then do have to sort of make allowances for the thickness of the plastic to make the part and so on and so forth. They also have to make allowances for the fact that they're not having these as cutouts, which they do on the 1/24th. You can take the weapon covers off. The mouldings look fine. They look okay. I can't see any obvious signs of flash anywhere or anything like that. I would say that this white bit here, that's from stress when the parts were packed. But other than that, everything's fine. Look at the underside and have that focus. There we go. Plenty of detail there. I mean, lots and lots and lots of detail. And the plastic looks like it's flowed nicely. These ejector slots are okay. Pretty cool. Yeah, everything looks nice. These access panels all look good. There's a little bit of stress there as well. Obviously, it's when it's been packed, bent slightly when it's packed. Yeah, but looks okay. These other parts on the frame here are just interior parts. You could actually, some of these you could probably drill out if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to make it look cool. But yeah, you don't have to. Especially if you've got the frames closed, the canopy closed, because it won't make a difference. The ejector pins are well recessed and not at all in your face. And they've gone for the bottom for the sort of overlap gate here. So this overlaps, you can then cut it off and trim it, and it's going to be really close to the line here. You haven't injected directly onto that leading edge, so that when you put the two halves together, all you really need to do is make sure that this is absolutely level, and then later you can just tidy that bit up if you want. But the mouldings look absolutely fine. There's a bit more wingtip action here as well. The fuselage again, all the panels very nice. Yeah, some people are going to say this is a bit too hard on the panel lines. Maybe, maybe not. I'd reserve judgment until I've actually seen the aircraft put together before I can really make a comment. This is my favourite part of the new tooling, and that is the receiver for a pin that goes from the undercarriage leg that absolutely locks the leg at the right angle forward and laterally. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, and I'm glad they've included that on here. The little bits and pieces of like throttles and stuff like that there. Here's the instrument panel. As you can see, the sensor is raised up slightly, and these are raised up as well, but it looks quite nice. It looks like you can very, very easily dry brush that if you wanted. How accurately you can recreate the actual instruments, of course, is another matter, but then you might not want to be. If you're having the canopy completely closed, then it might be a moot point whether or not you could see that sort of level of detail anyway. But anyway, you do have the choice, which is good. The side panels of the fuselage are here. All these bits of pipe work and switches and radio switches and whatever. All look very nice. Again, for the scale, I think they're fine. I don't see any problem with them. And then the pilot figure, perhaps not as crisp as it could be around the mouth and nose here, but I think it should be okay to paint up. I will be doing it, the pilot, as I mentioned before, on this. I have a feeling, I have a feeling they do have a decal for this part, so that the turn to release instructions. Many of you will remember from flying chipmunks or such in air experience flights in the cadets, that these things do have a way you turn them and press them together for the release. You don't sort of turn it and hit it dramatically like you see in the movies. I'm pretty sure they've got a decal for that, which is really cool. It could be a bit sharper, but I don't know. It's fine. But the very fact it's got a pilot figure at all is welcome enough, I suppose. But it could be a little sharper, I suspect. But it's okay. The hands are okay. The hands will go with the throttle quadrants and the control column okay. Then on to some of the very smallest parts, and yeah, they look okay. That's the control column and the spade grip there. Once again, you can see this is a 0.5 millimetre, so that spade grip is around 0.5 millimetre thick, that plastic, and it's moulded nicely. This is an overflow reservoir. You see quite often these little nubs that are there to allow, to make sure that this fills correctly, because it's quite thin, and with the injection pressure it's very easy for that not to fill unless there's an overflow reservoir for it. Here's parts of the seat as well. There's a frame for the seat. Again, a slight bit of stress mark there from the packing, pushing the parts together a little bit on the packing, which I'm not sure about. The rudder has the rudder control here moulded in, which is a nice touch as well. So yeah, everything looks nice and clean and crisp and clear. Very happy with it. And finally, the clear parts for the front. Very, very clean, very clear. Nice bits of plastic. Here's the wingtips, should you wish to have them. Let's have a look on the other side. Okay. Yep. And there's gun sights as well up here. And a cover for the ID light up here. Yep. All looks very good. All looks very clean. There's no... These are single piece moulds. There's no slide moulding or anything like that on here. So they're nice and clean on top. Good plastic. The decal sheet, again, as usual nowadays, is from Cartograph. What I like about AIRFIX decal sheets is they tend to be very carefully laid out. So along here we have all the common decals, stencils and things like that, instrument panels, whatever, that go on all aircraft. Then we have the things that are specific to Scheme A, the Royal Air Force aircraft, things specific to the Danish aircraft here, and then things specific to the Belgian aircraft here. Beautifully laid out as well. And as always, stunningly bright colours, really lovely colours. Why would you not go with Cartograph for your decals? I don't understand, if you would. Beautiful, beautiful decals. And now a close look at the decal sheet, and here's the instrument panel. This is a 0.5mm standard sized pencil lead, so you can see how fine the detail is. Now, I would be tempted, if I'm using these decals, to cut these into blocks. So this block here, for example, would be one block. This block might be another. Might do those two separately. Might do these separately, and then these maybe. The reason is they're going to look better when you put them onto the existing instrument panel, because of the raised nature, especially the 6 sort of cardinal instruments in the middle here. They're on a sort of a more raised panel, and trying to get all of these decals to sit in their positions with the raised panels, I think it's too difficult. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to cut them up. What I might do, what I have done before, is cut them and then dry brush the instrument panel slightly, and then put the bits and pieces in, and then go around them with bits of matte, or respray it with matte, and then do a few drops of gloss just over the actual instruments. But we'll have a look at that later. I mean, there's plenty you can do to make the instruments look really nice. As usual, the printing on these decals is fantastic. The white is lovely. These markings here, the undercarriage selector, all these different bits and pieces. Very, very cleanly printed in beautiful registration, which is very, very important. And very readable, which is fantastic. How readable they'll be, obviously, on the finished aircraft depends on how well you finish the aircraft, but hey ho, at least they give you a good start. The colours, again, to my eye, I'll say to my eye, I'm not going to say they are perfect, but I expect them to be. Under this lighting, these colours are absolutely spot on. I mean, beautiful. The red looks like insignia red, the blue looks like insignia blue to my eyes. So I'm really, really happy with those. No question at all. Likewise, the red of the Danish flag. You can see the reds are different. The red of the Danish flag is different to the red of the Roundel. Now, this is why Cartograph decals are so expensive. Is that those are 2 separate pieces of screen, the 2 separate screens that they use for printing the decals. So in other companies you would use 4 colour prints, so cyan, magenta, yellow and black, to recreate these colours, and you better see a sort of a granularity in here. Bit like if you look at a magazine photograph really, really close, you can see all the colour dots. So imagine that shrunk down a bit more, and you'll see that sort of granular approach. These don't have it because that's a solid chunk of ink. But you have to have a different colour chunk of ink for each of the colours. Makes it very expensive because you can have a lot of colours. Again, this blue is different to this blue, so it's another set of colours. You've got this little logo here, Again, that brown doesn't appear anywhere else. That's a separate logo screen. This grey here and this blue-grey here are separate screens. This is why it's so phenomenally expensive. People have asked me why Cartograph are expensive, and this is why. Added to which, you've got to get these to register absolutely accurately to look realistic. And that is a skill. That's an absolute skill. So, there we go. That's a parts of protective cover for the wing. Here's a spiral thing that goes on the prop of the Belgian aircraft. So all in all, these are really remarkable, as usual, remarkably lovely decals to use. And they're relatively thin, so they do tend to sit on the aircraft very nicely. The instruction sheet will look very sort of familiar to anyone who's made an AIRFIX kit recently. So at the top, scale and title in red, the product code here, and a reprise of the size of the aircraft and the fact it's got 3 decal schemes. There's a history of the Mk.IX in English here and French and German. There's also a specifications list here, basic things as speed, size, armaments and so on. And all of these are repeated again in Spanish and Swedish on the inside of the front cover. We have some basic assembly instructions here in 12 languages, and those same 12 languages also have the translations for the icons that are used throughout the instruction sheet. And then on to the instructions themselves, and as usual now the assembly, each frame for the assembly is a little bit smaller. It does save on paper, it doesn't make it any more difficult to read by any means. So that's very good, and as usual with AIRFIX, anything painted in this sort of reddish orangey colour means that it's something you've already done. So for example here we've put the instrument panel onto this frame of the fuselage, so when that frame appears again here, it reminds you you've already done that. Now it sounds silly, but it is actually really useful to be able to look forward sometimes to see, right, that goes on the side there, but then you can look further and see exactly where it fits. It's actually quite a good reference to some things that are slightly more tricky occasionally to know exactly where they're supposed to go. Look at a later frame and it will be highlighted. You've just done that. That's how it should be. Sometimes you also get colour callouts. All the colour callouts are in the Humbrol numbers, so if you want, you could probably go along and start calling out what these colours are. 78's interior, grey, green, for example, and just make notes in your instructions so that you don't have to keep going back to reference them, especially if they're numbers you're not familiar with and you don't have to keep looking up on your phone what the numbers are. So inside here there's also the pilot, and there's this is how we paint up the pilot again. This is for the RAF colour scheme. This is for the Danish and Belgian colour schemes, one I'll be doing. And I'll be doing the pilot inside mine. I'm going to put the pilot in mine, this one. I might have the window open, as if he were taxiing, for example. But I'll see how we go with that. You will, of course, most likely be doing all of the build of the cockpit area, get that done, then sit the pilot in and put the arms where they're supposed to go, let them dry, then take it out, would be a better way rather than trying to put it in and then paint around it. I think it would be easier to do it that way. If you're putting the canopy on complete, okay, and not having a sliding canopy, if you're having the canopy completed on there, you do have to take off these two little bits, ridges here, they're marked in green. This bit in purple points out the fact you do actually have 2 jigs included, so you know where to cut and where to sand down to, which is a very, very nice touch. The perennial issue with people I have heard so many times, no, you don't do that, you do this. Scheme A, the RAF one, the emergency opening arm is in aluminium, and the one for the Danish and Belgian aircraft, that arm is painted up red. I'm assuming they've done the research to justify that. They wouldn't do it otherwise. So that's a nice little argument for the modelling club to get involved in. There's a few things like the filler caps for glycol tank and things like that that you do, and then the fuselage halves come together, and there's a single piece engine cover, which is always welcome because it saves having to do the seam there. You've only got just this tiny bit of seam there to fit, and then of course across the back as well. Tailplane goes together, absolutely standard, sort of two parts go together, they clip on the Spitfire here. The whole elevator goes on in one piece, and there's a little post that goes on the back, then the rudder goes on. Very, very straightforward. All of these are as usual. There's a nice sort of spar there to be the two halves of the wheel well there for the legs, but also it does add quite a lot of strength to the structure of the frame. Now, I was mentioning earlier about there probably being a cut-off wingtip Spitfire. Well, this one can be a cut-off wingtip Spitfire if you're doing version C, which is the Belgian fighter training. They say cut off the ends, and then you can use the clear part as a clipped wing Spitfire. I had no idea that's what it was. So well done them for including that. I still think they can make a Mark 8 out of that just by putting a retractable undercarriage in. But that's just me. It would be a different part. Undercarriage goes together very nicely. Now, on these new Spitfires, the fit of this part here into the wing absolutely sets these angles so really, really comfortably. It was done on the 124th Spitfire like this. It's done on this because this is basically a scaled down 124th model. Absolute delight to see that keeping going. As mentioned before, the exhaust stubs go together in bits and then all clamped together so they look right. There's sort of stubs for the 20mm cannon. The props go together. Transparencies go together. Nice, they've got a little rearview mirror up there. And then that's it. And then we're into the schemes. First scheme is an aircraft of number 43 Squadron Royal Air Force, flown at Ravenna in Italy in March to April 1945, flown by Pilot Officer Alan Edwards, who apparently was Australian. So absolutely standard late war scheme of dark green, ocean grey on top, medium sea grey underneath. Absolutely standard colours. Very similar colours are the Danish aircraft, again with dark green, ocean grey, and then medium sea grey. It's just a slightly different pattern to the Royal Air Force aircraft. And of course you've got the coloured prop boss in yellow to worry about. Well, not worry about, to do. There's nothing to worry about on this. And then finally, the aircraft of the Bristol Advanced Pilot School in Belgium in 1952. And here you can see the cropped wingtips and a blue spinner. That spinner, lines of those spinners, is actually part of the decal sheet, so you don't have to worry about trying to paint that yourself. Okay, that's the instruction sheet. There it is. Now, I always felt that the existing AIRFIX 148 Spitfires were pretty good. Not the greatest, but generally easy to build, apart from the undercarriage. This new Mk.IX, like the TR9, which shares a lot of the tooling, looks very good indeed to my eyes, at least. The surface detail is good enough not to need any panel lining, and the moulding looks very competent indeed. The comparison with a similarly priced Eduard Profi pack is obvious. Eduard includes 6 schemes, painted photo etch and a paint mask. But I think the AIRFIX kit suits someone newer to the hobby than an Eduard Profi pack does. The parts design is better, especially with the undercarriage legs, and you get the option of clipped wings if you want them. However, Compare with the Edward Weekend Edition, which is closer to like, then you'll be spending at least half as much again for the AIRFIX kit, which I think many will find difficult to justify. Maybe I'll change my mind once I've built it. Do let me know what you think of the kit in the comments box below, and if you've enjoyed the video, then do please give it the Imperial thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks so very much for watching today, and goodbye.